So, I was trying to correlate the environmental pollution control along with spectroscopy. So, how do we define the environmental pollution? It is a big term and requires a lot of considerations, but in short we can define it as the temporary or permanent change occurring in our surroundings such as air, water, land, which affect the quality of human life. That is more important now, either temporarily or permanently, either way we can define. It may have short term effect or long term effect or permanent effect, depends. So, since last 60 years we have seen that environmental pollution has been posing a major threat to the survival of living organisms, that includes man also, and several plants and animals of the planet. I think all of you know that there are at least about 15,000 plant species and about 75,000 animal species are in the danger of extinction. That is because of the changes in the environment occurring, changes in concentration of the carbon dioxide, pollutants, etc., temperature variations, and then composition of the air, composition of the land, composition of the water, so many other factors. In general, what we see is man cannot move as easily as animals. If I find that one particular environment is causing a pollution, man cannot translocate to some other area immediately, but plants and animals, plants also cannot translocate, but within a limited system a pollutant entering a plant body can be translocated into either leaves or in the stem or in the flowers, and they can be disposed of to a certain extent. Animals themselves can move away somewhere else, but man cannot move from one area to another so easily, because our whole ecosystem, agriculture, industry, and several schools, colleges, buildings and several other ecosystems are associated with the land environment, and it is very difficult for us to move around. So, that way man is a handicapped animal, right. So, technically environmental pollution is thought to originate from the dust, chemicals and their interactions with the microbiological species such as bacteria, viruses, algae, fungi, etc. So, localized pollution also can be caused by several factors. One of them, some of them I have written here. One is variation of BOD and COD, and I am not going to explain to you what is BOD and COD, except that it is biochemical oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. When I do a course on environmental pollution, we will see what we can do with the BOD and COD. Basically, most of these chemicals demand oxygen from the air or from some other source to oxidize the components, the organic compounds, to carbon dioxide and water. In general, we do not consider carbon dioxide as a pollutant, but quite often technically it is not a pollutant, but it has its after effects. For example, carbon dioxide generally is implicated in the earth's temperature increase, and ozone holes, this, that, and several other things are there. Okay. So, even though carbon dioxide by itself is not a pollutant, but we have to consider it as one of the important contributors to the climate management. And carbon dioxide content keeps on increasing. It comes from human resources, human sources, automobiles and natural sources also to quite a large extent. But local variation of BOD and COD in water bodies definitely causes change in the water environment, that is increasing its oxygen from the water bodies. Okay, that is why we had written that variation of BOD and COD in water by the chemicals and petrochemicals. And then we also have something known as atmospheric emissions, that also causes localized pollution from industries. And then we have decomposition of organic matter. You eat something, throw it somewhere, and then it starts decomposing, it gives you trouble, and then it gives you smell, and then the smell mixes it with air, water or land or something like that, and that is another part. And the other part is, last part is irretrievable loss of metal ions and their distribution in the environment. If I tell you some of the facts about metals in the environment, you will be shocked. Basically, I have a certain amount of logic. Now imagine that in India we are about 125 crore people, right? About 50% of the people are males approximately, even though it's now males are more, about 960 for a 9, how much is that? About maybe 943 girls for 1000 people, men or something like that. That is the current level. But approximately 50% if we take 62.5 crores of men are there, and these people out of 62, there are quite a few who are above 16, and they all shave regularly. Another 10% do not shave. So, that makes it about 50 crores, and if I use one shaving blade per month, every month we are throwing 50 crore shaving blades in the environment. Nobody knows what is happening to what is the fate of the shaving blades in our environment, right. So, these shaving blades are all very special metals: tungsten, stainless steel, carbon, chromium, then what else is there, platinum. They are all coated to make them sharp, work better. But at the end of its useful life, what happens to the shaving blade? This shaving blade ends up somewhere on the soil or in the municipal waste basket, and once it reaches there, the cows will come and eat them. They cannot distinguish the shaving blades. They eat the blades, they get cut, they get wounded, they hurt, and then gangrene sets in, and so many myriad problems. That is only with respect to shaving blades I am talking to you. But then there are ladies' hairpins, millions and millions of hairpins, use and throw, use and throw. Plus there are metals, ball bearings, and then staple pins, thousands and millions of materials which are coming into the environment. Their value is so small that we do not bother to recover and use them. So, with the result that all of them end up in the environment. So, an atmosphere which was supposed to be pure since millions of years is being vitiated by the metal ions which we are using and throwing. We have so many computers, they contain 53 elements which man never used earlier, about 10 years before. So, these gold material, 1 gram gold, 10 gram, use and throw, use and throw, use and throw. E-waste is another part. So many other things are there. I do not want to go into the details of that kind of problems, but there is a very strong component of the environmental pollution coming from irretrievable loss of metal ions and their distribution in the environment. Now, you can see that while it is true that the pollution causes a variety of maladies, it is also possible to at least partially remedy the situation. okay, by physically and chemically removing the offending chemicals. So, therefore, the procedure for environmental pollution control, what does it involve? If I know that there is a possibility for environmental pollution, I must have a plan to solve the environmental pollution problems. So, what are the steps involved? It does not require a genius to define the steps. Okay? So, the requirement, first and foremost requirement is you identify what it is, very simple. You identify the pollutant, you determine the quantity of the pollutant and the extent of pollution, that is the first part, right. And then secondly, we need to find a technical means for solving the problems. A technical problem normally requires a technical solution, right. So, if there is an air pollution problem, you cannot organize a 510 kilometer run and shout let there not be any air pollution, let there not be any air pollution, like that. Air pollution will not go. So, we need a technical solution to a technical problem. So, that is what I call it as technical intervention. Okay. So, post intervention, suppose I plan something and execute it. After the technical intervention, I must also know what is happening after the technical intervention, whether pollution has reduced or not. Again, I need the monitoring of the environment, whether it is air, water or solid waste, right. So, these are the three steps basically. One is identification and determination of the pollutants and the extent of pollution, that is number one. Number two is technical intervention, which requires specialized knowledge, special application, and the last one also requires technical knowledge, that is post intervention evaluation. So, fortunately, it is possible for us to employ atomic and molecular spectroscopy to qualitatively and quantitatively determine the pollutants in any given matrix. And as I told you, a matrix can be air, water or solid. Okay. So, the advantages of spectroscopic methods basically include that first thing is they are all very simple techniques. All you do not have to do, even if you are a chemist, you still do not have to do many things when you are doing a spectroscopic analysis. All you got to do is probably take the sample and then put it in a sample holder, put it in the spectrophotometer, let the spectrophotometer do the job. Okay. Once you get the data, that interpretation and application and other things are different, but actual work involved in the spectroscopic measurement of human intervention is very less. So, the spectroscopic methods offer the advantage of simplicity. I can train a person who is not a spectroscopist, I can just teach him, okay Baba, you take this sample, put it in this box, put it in this spectrophotometer or IR instrument or AAS, let the machine do the job. So, there will be a machine operator, he will operate the machine, but spectrophotometer has got a computer, it will do the analysis, it will collect the data, it will do everything, it will plot you a graph, it will tell you what is the concentration, so many other things it can do. So, to do a spectroscopic job, you do not have to be a spectroscopist, but if you are a spectroscopist, it helps. That is the catch. We want to know where are we standing with respect to a spectroscopic technique. So, the spectroscopic techniques offer us advantages that are fast, that are reliable, that are cost effective solutions. They should be fast also. You cannot wait for hours together whenever a disaster is happening, right. You cannot wait for months together or hours together, whenever there is a sports competition, there are always 3 guys standing on the podium, number 1, number 2 and number 3, and you have to take their urine analysis and see that they are not into drugs. So, you cannot make them stand for 1 hour, 1.5 hour to just to determine whether they are into the drugs or not. So, I need a spectroscopic method to analyze their urine very fast, maybe within a few seconds, maybe within a few minutes. So, from the time they win the competition, by the time they come to the podium, their samples must be collected, analyzed, results obtained, and then interpreted and then brought to the podium to give them the numbers. So, they should be simple, fast, reliable and cost effective also. Without cost effective techniques, there is no pollution monitoring. Okay. It can be a very costly process if you do not know what to do. So, if you know what to do, you can arrive at lot of short term compromises without compromising the quality. That is the beauty. So, we have the advantage of spectroscopic methods offer these examples, these advantages, that is simple, fast, reliable and cost effective solutions for pollution monitoring. So, what is environmental analytical science then? We said about something about the atomic structure, we said something about spectroscopy, we said something about pollution control, right. Now, we are talking about what is environmental analytical science. So, that aims at developing methodologies. So, the job of the analytical chemist is to develop a methodology given a matrix. Again, I am coming back to the matrix, because sometimes our requirement is ultra trace, sometimes it is trace, sometimes it is minor components or sometimes it is major component. If it is something like a trace, the drugs the sports persons take, that will be in nanogram level. So, if they are detected, it means they are taking, right. So, job of the chemist is always to develop methodology to ensure that the technique is not affected by the complexity of the sample. Okay. Now, again there are other aspects of analytical evaluation, that is, after you develop a methodology, we also want instrumentation, okay, and then we want mathematical correlations and models we need that predict the environmental fate of new and existing chemical compounds. So, all these things are basically the job of chemists. Okay. Now, many of you are not chemical engineers, maybe chemical engineers, many of you may not be chemists, but a new methodology needs to be brought whenever there is a challenge to the environment. So, this challenge involves change in the methodology. So, who will decide that? The change in the methodology should be such that the matrix should not be affected. Number 2, matrix should not interfere. Number 3, matrix should not matter. That is known as specificity. So, it must be sensitive, it must be selective and then it must be specific. These 3 properties we normally look for: sensitivity, selectivity and the specificity. If all the 3 are satisfied, an analytical chemist is satisfied. So, the methodology is taken care of. What about instrumentation? Yes, instrumentation also is important, because it saves the time. If I have the most modern instrument with a computer background supporting me, collecting the data, transferring the data, printing out the data, making the calibration curve, making the analysis, making the statistical evaluation, several other things which are required if I do manually, which may take some specific amount of time, can be done in a few seconds. So, instrumentation is important, and also mathematical correlations like statistical deviation and then coefficient of variation, that is also required, standard deviation is required, relative variation is required, and all the significance, 95% confidence level, 98% confidence level, student effect, and all those technical statistical evaluations will tell us how significant is the change of the environment with respect to a particular pollutant. So, the models that predict the environmental fate of new and existing compounds are also required. This cannot be done by chemists. That requires a little bit of more understanding of mathematics, physics and other principles. So, probably chemical engineers will do that job with the help of chemists and other people. So, that is why environmental chemistry or environmental science itself is a great science involving all these people, contributors. So, it presents in a concise form the most important properties relating to the chemical reactions and the amount of substances that are present there. So, a thorough knowledge of the environmental analytical chemistry, it greatly helps us to measure the extent of environmental pollution monitoring also, pollution monitoring, which in turn can be adapted to pollution control. Okay. So, the knowledge of chemistry is important, knowledge of mathematics is important, knowledge of instrumentation is important. Only when we have all the three, then only we can say that yes, I have understood a little bit about the spectroscopy. In the spectroscopy again, there are lot of other nuances, how to interpret, what could be the interferences, how to eliminate the interference, all those things we will see in due course during our course. I have mentioned this in spectrophotometry and atomic absorption and ICP also. We will see the what kind of techniques we can apply for infrared spectroscopy also. Okay. So, this paragraph, this slide, what I am going to show you is about spectrophotometry. It just gives you an idea about how important are the spectroscopic techniques in the environmental management. Just look at the slide, what I have here. I have look at the slide, what I have written here? I have written that spectrophotometry, that is only color measurement. It is not what I am going to teach you in this course, but I am giving you the simplest spectroscopic technique, that is molecular spectroscopy. That is one of the earliest instrumental methods of analysis, and a majority of the chemical compounds are colorless and hence not amenable for spectrophotometry, because it measures only color. Fortunately, it is possible to convert them into colored compounds by reaction, chemical reactions with suitable chromophore. What is a chromophore? A chromophore is a group of chemicals, group of atoms, a functional group that reacts with a metal ion or something like that with a reactive moiety to give a colored compound. Okay. So, as of now, more than 100,000 compounds can be made to undergo chemical reactions to produce colored compounds, and on an average more than 30 million spectrophotometric measurements are made daily worldwide. So, another advantage of spectrophotometry is that the procedure can be as easily automated, okay, or with little or no manual interference. no manual intervention. Everything, you just put the samples there, go home, have lunch and come back, your data will be ready. So, this is the kind of automation we are talking about in most of these spectroscopic techniques nowadays. Most of them are simple, straightforward instrumental methods which can be automated also. So, a little more about spectrophotometry. It is based on the measurement of color of the chemicals. Heterocyclic chemistry and analytical chemistry are rapidly changing subjects whose almost frenetic activities are attested by the countless research papers. Thousands of research papers have been published and being published that appear in the established and new journals, and by the proliferation of the monographs. These are the world treasures of the technical literature. They are known as monographs, and reviews on all aspects of the fields. Therefore, the interdependence of these two major branches of chemistry has resulted in the resurgence of UV visible spectroscopy. Okay? And sensitivity again improves by going heterocyclics, and then consequently the majority of the research has been transferred in the last 2 decades to the field of environmental analytical chemistry. This you should know. So, quite often we always say that spectrophotometry is the most simplest and most easiest way of doing the spectroscopy. So, now I will talk about the atomic absorption a little bit, and then I will talk about other techniques, and then we will try to understand the atomic structure. Okay. Once we understand the atomic structure, we will study the interaction of radiation with matter. That will be part of the next courses. So, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.